My juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
Look at this technology right here on Law of the Wolf. I'm Joe Giglio, joined by a very special guest this week, Chip Patterson. I would love to say this is like you breaking your cherry here at the Eford Studios, but you've been on the O+G podcast, so I can't make that claim. But I am happy to have you.
It's my Law of the Wolf debut.
It is your Law of the Wolf debut, and am I allowed to say you're definitely a college football expert?
Correct.
Am I allowed to say that you're a bit of a gambling expert?
Yes, because CBS Sports and CBS Sports Digital have a partner called Sportsline that they've spun off that is entirely gambling analysis.
Okay,
and
so I embrace then. Here in the year of our Lord 2023.
100%. I mean, it's been up for 5 years now, and I am a Sportsline expert.
Yes,
you know, I'm on Sportsline.com, and every single Friday on the Sportsline YouTube page, you can find me on the early edge at 10 a.m. So as we are sitting here recording on a Friday, full transparency, I just came off of giving Denny McCarthy in a 3-ball against Matt Kuchar and Zach Johnson.
Love 3-ball bets.
Hey, Denny McCarthy's got to feel hungry. He's been playing really well this year. He's still looking for his first PGA Tour win. And at 3 under, he might be out of it, but he might not. You know, you're chasing that 62 9 under lead right now.
You know how I feel about Virginia people.
And
Chip
so
Patterson.
He's got to hit the gas. We're going to take him on the 3-ball. And then the other one was actually, I'm going to start leaving breadcrumbs on the early edge with 1 win total every single Friday. And one of them is from the ACC. We'll get to it later.
All right. So for your proper job for CBS Sports, I saw that you wrote up the win totals for the ACC.
Yes.
I wanted to hit those, and obviously we'll have a lean here towards NC State. But as you might know, being here in the Triangle, there's some interest in the Tar Heels. There's some interest in Duke and Wake Forest. So I just want to do all the teams in the ACC. I also want to ask you about what do you do when there might not be value in, say, picking Clemson to win the ACC or pick Georgia to win the national championship? What do you like to do at the start of a year, the start of a football season, summer like this, where you have an off season? I'm not going to sit here and put you on the spot and say that you had TCU to make the playoff last year or something like that. But what do you like to do when there's something obvious? We'll stay in the ACC, Clemson. Do you take Clemson? Do you take the obvious, even if it's only a small plus return, or do you try to find who else would be in the championship game, for example, this year?
And then go with the hedge ticket there. It really is difficult
to make the ACC championship game. I guess you could get decent odds on some other teams.
Can you even get to make the ACC championship?
Probably can. You have to look for it though.
Yeah. To make it,
because it used to be just pick a Coastal Division winner.
Odds makers are going to be like, who cares?
I know, but you can bet on anything. You know this.
I know, but I think that the move is to go for if you can find anything at 20-1 or better with a team that you like that might have a shot to win a conference, and that's what I would do, a conference championship future. And you go and you pick up a little bit of that ticket, and then maybe you've got that opportunity if they do make it to the conference championship game. I do not like pre-flop national title picks.
You do not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think that number one, I mean, how many teams are actually winning a national championship? You know, and the odds are so small that you would almost rather just ride that team all throughout the season.
Okay.
Just be like, I don't know. I think if you like them to win a national championship, to go all the way to that 15th game and win it, you must like them a hell of a lot. So just make them your team and be able to go and pick up little wins along the way rather than having to sweat that out. And I'm actually, we've got you have a global audience, obviously, but for the state of North Carolina, one thing that I think is going to be educational about win totals is DraftKings holds your money.
Yes.
Yeah. There ain't no credit with FanDuel.
No, you have to for example, I told you, Josh Goodson and I are going to make a run to Danville.
Right.
That requires us having the money up front and going to Danville. and placing these futures bets.
You would rather put the $100 in a money market for 4 months rather than put $100 on to win like 140 on Georgia to win the national championship.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at on these national title futures. But this is where I'll say, if you want to jump in week 7, if you want to jump in week
maybe
8,
after a loss,
or yes,
if somebody's odds would go an Ohio State,
Ohio
Michigan,
State loses,
something like that.
Like if you still believe, like that's when I think you find the real opportunities. Jumping in pre-flop on national title, not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of Heisman Trophy pre-flop as well heading into the season. Yeah, but then you go see Joe Burrow light up Texas in like week 2, and you're like, wait a second,
hold on,
is this LSU offense going to tear college football apart? And you could have gotten Joe Burrow to win the Heisman Trophy at that time at like 30-1. And so, because he was just a game manager the year before. So that's why for national title and Heisman Trophy, I don't love trying to do the long shots. Because again, DraftKings is going to hold your money for you to not get that investment. But the long shot to win a conference championship, all you need them to do is make the game, and then you've got the hedge opportunity.
All right. So let's just use UNC, for example, to win the ACC right now, plus 886 right now. So if you're new to gambling, that means if you bet $100, you would win $886. It's a pretty good return. 8-1, almost 9-1. That's a pretty good return. But I think what you're saying is you'd be better off taking Carolina every step of the way and winning on the money line, perhaps.
And just even rolling it over.
Than trying to get to a final where maybe they play Clemson or Florida State.
Right.
And if you lose, then you have nothing.
Right.
Right?
Because North Carolina isn't that the 3rd team on the odds board? I don't have it pulled up now. Yeah.
So it's Clemson plus 164. I think you and I are in agreement. We both like Clemson to win the ACC again.
Yes.
Like sometimes we try to outsmart ourselves and say, well, and you know, the year that they didn't win it, I think a lot of us knew it wasn't going to be Clemson. I had Carolina. I just had the wrong team that year. I do think it's going to be Clemson. Florida State's plus 179. That doesn't seem like a great return either. It just doesn't seem like either one is worth taking.
Correct.
So then you have the team that I kind of sort of like, who I would take to actually make the championship game, is Louisville.
What's that?
They're plus 959 to win the ACC, though. So you're better off riding through. It's an interesting conundrum for people who are new to gambling.
Right.
And I will say, in complete and total transparency, I am better at futures bets. I am better at set it and forget it's than I am going along the way, because I have no discipline. Right?
Yeah.
Because I might take Louisville to win the game, but then all of a sudden now I'm on the live line and I'm chasing everything which way but loose, when I would have been better off at the beginning putting 100 on Louisville and seeing what happens at the end with Louisville. So that's where I'm coming from as a gambler. But I don't see great value. Like, even if Louisville wins the ACC this year, wouldn't you want something more than 9.5 to 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Like, because the likelihood of Louisville getting to the ACC championship game and then winning it against, we assume, would be either Clemson or Florida State.
Right.
Which, by the way, and we'll get to in a little bit, neither of them show up on Louisville's schedule this year.
Yeah, strangely enough. Maybe Pitt 26 to 1 would be worth, because Carolina 8 to 1, not really there. State 9 plus 975, not really there.
Again, that's why I say 20 to, and last year the play was, and we talked about this on the Cover 3 podcast, was 28 to 1 for TCU.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody has buried them. I'm telling you,
that was their conference pre-flop.
Wow. Conference 28 to 1. They were like 7th on the odds board. And we were like, that was not an issue of a roster that is bad. They just hated their coach. Okay. And they have flipped the coaching staff. They've brought in like good offensive coaches for a good offensive talent. Like, that is ridiculous odds. Snap that up right now. And then you were going into the championship game against Kansas State. Now, again, they lost the championship game in overtime.
Right.
Shout out to Max Duggan for pulling his lifeless body off the ground time and time again. But like, you had the hedge opportunity to then take Kansas State in that game and be a winner either way. So in general, I say that if you're going to do the long shot conference title thing, around 20 to 1 or longer is where it starts to become valuable.
All right. So this is how we're going to do this. We'll do this in 3 sections. We'll do the quote unquote favorites. Then we'll do the bottom of the league, which might be the most interesting part. And then we'll close with the locals of Duke, Wake, and of course State here on the Law of the Wolf podcast. Chip, Patterson, CBS Sports. Give me the podcast.
The Cover 3 podcast.
Cover 3 podcast. This man knows what he's talking about. He's going to start dropping some. I'm a big picture. I'm from the sky kind of guy. When Chip starts with these names, you get me every time. Get me every time with this stuff. So Chip is the best. Appreciate you joining us this week. But of course, this is the Law of the Wolf. And of course, this is my podcast and I have to pay some bills. So you need to just sit tight. Just for 1 second, just for me, and enjoy the sounds from Jonathan Rand. The forever, as I've stopped calling him the former producer. He's now our forever producer, whether he knows it or not.
Housekeeping.
All right, this is year 3 of the podcast for me, an NC State podcast. And each year, Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, Hayes Lancaster and his crew has been there for me. Give him a call, 919-807-1951, or check him out online. It's bugsbite.com. If you got ants inside the house, outside the house, termites, you name it, you got mice under the house or in your attic, that's the keyword there, Chip, is pest. So you got bugs, you got pests, moisture under your house. I had my crawl space completely redone. Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority on the job. Hayes Lancaster and his crew. Hayes is 3 years. So it's 919-807-1951, or check them out on bugsbite.com. All right. New this year are my friends from Breeze Through. Adam at Breeze Through. Look at this mug. This is a tumbler. It's you can see it now. Lifetime refills. These are $20 at the Breeze Through. Coming soon, though, we will be doing an OG mixtape where we give away these tumblers, which you can go in, get refilled for free. There's one right there at Edwards Mill. You're going to state basketball games. You're going to state football games. Breeze Through has you covered. They have 17 locations throughout North Carolina: Cary, Apex, Smithfield, Garner, you name it. Pittsboro, Lenore, Blowing Rock. That's a thing. Wherever you go this summer, the Breeze Through crew has you covered. You know, this is the part where I hit the button.
Move on.
Oh, Chip Patterson. Joe Ovius is the brains and technology of this program. I'm the looks, apparently.
He's also always wanted those sounders.
He has.
He actually put in a request to me to like throw some together for him.
Yes, because you are also crazy talented and can do piano stuff.
And he didn't like it. I thought way too much about it. And, Rand, just the beauty is in the simplicity. Like when you told about him like firing back the one tequila, the one margarita. Yeah. Like he understands that. I got way too lost in layering keyboard sounds. Joe is like, what is this right now?
All right, so let's start with the favorites.
Okay.
I mentioned Clemson was the gambling favorite in this. Their total. So we're going to go through every team's total in the league. You did this on CBSSports.com. You can check there, Chip Patterson. All right, so Clemson's total is 10. Now, I'm using yours. These are Caesars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't like it when they give us these round numbers because I prefer to be either over or under, but we're going to go with what you have because I trust you. All right, so the over is plus 100, meaning if you bet $100, you get $100 back. The under is minus 130. Interesting. So what they're saying to you is that you have to bet $130 to make 100. They're also saying
you think they're going 9-3, and Clemson ain't going 9-3.
But they're saying, the book is saying they think Clemson's going under by minus 130.
No.
That's what they're suggesting to you.
Hey, how about over 11 plus 324 on the alt line?
Let's not confuse people here now. All right, so last year Clemson goes 11-3, 8-0 in the league. And here's how I want to do this. And I think this is pretty similar to what you do, but you actually picked every game on the article.
Yes, on the article. But on July 10th, I guess that's Monday, the Cover 3 podcast is going to begin our win total series, which is about 6 weeks of doing every single Power 5 conference, every single team. We won't give out our locks for win totals until we're done with the series.
Those are the ones you take to Danville.
Yeah.
These are the ones we're ruminating about.
Yeah, and it's like, what's your lean on this one?
Yes, yes.
And when I prepare for those shows, that is when I go with something very similar to you, where I call it the win-loss toss-up analysis.
Okay.
You've got win-loss coin flips.
Yes.
So we're using the same process. We'll see if we get the same results.
We definitely are. All right. So Clemson, in my opinion, has 6 games that they're definitely going to win.
Okay.
At Duke, Charleston Southern, FAU, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Carolina. I've got 6.
Okay.
I don't have any games that I believe Clemson will definitely lose.
Correct. I agree.
I do have 6 games, though, that I believe are going to fall under the coin toss portion of this programming. Florida State at home, at Syracuse, just because they've struggled in that situation before. I'm granting them at Miami as a coin toss, at State, Notre Dame at home, at South Carolina. I think you and I are under the same opinion that for most teams, you would say they're going to go 3-3, or they're going to go 500 in their coin toss games. I don't think Clemson's going 500 in their coin toss games.
Like, this is where you have to go to the other side of it. It's like, actually talk yourself through the idea that Florida State is going to go into Death Valley, which is one of the best home field advantages in the ACC, and that they are going to go win that football game. Because they are not going to win that football game. If you line up the rosters and say, all right, let's just take the 30 best football players, 25 of them are coming from Clemson's roster right now. I mean, they are better at quarterback. They are better at running back. They are better at wide receiver. They are better at defensive line. They are better at linebacker. I would only give Florida State offensive line and secondary. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that one at all. So I'm not going to I've got that one as a toss up as well too.
But if they go 4-2, then that's 10-2. That's a push.
I don't think at South Carolina is a toss. I do not. South Carolina, things are moving in the wrong. Like, the transfer portal gives and the transfer portal taketh away. Congratulations, you got a Spencer Rattler.
Right.
Bye your best wide receiver, your best running back, and offensive line.
Okay.
Oh no. Oh, you've got a bad offensive line against Clemson. Oh boy, that's going to go really well.
Problem. And
also revenge factor after South Carolina beat them last year. So the South Carolina game I do not have as a toss up.
Okay.
At Syracuse, that's a fair point. I might flip that by the time I have to talk about this on the Cover 3 podcast. But I also said Florida State generously at Miami, at NC State for real.
Well, you know me,
Notre Dame
I believe everyone plays a Super Bowl.
And Miami,
every team plays a Super Bowl. Right. So you're going to get up for one of these games.
Right.
In theory, right? Like, Miami and Syracuse have to be pumped to play Clemson.
Yes.
Right. And if you're going to play Clemson, now the league does a pretty good job of setting this up for them, because in my opinion, you want to play a team after they had to pour it out, right? So in my opinion, the toughest game for them is going to be Notre Dame. So they play Notre Dame on the 4th, and then the next week they host Georgia Tech. So that's a good situation.
So here's the thing: what if Clemson gets fired up to play Miami
and hammers them, and then
here's the
goes to State and is a little bit flat?
Here's the last 4 results between Clemson and Miami.
Okay.
40-10, 42-17, 38-3, and 58-0.
Fair enough.
Again, like, I had it as like a quote toss up too, but like, I think that Clemson is far and away the best team in the ACC.
Also, they added a real offensive coordinator in Garrett Riley, in someone I thought, if Dave Doran had decided to take one of the other jobs that he potentially could have last year, that's who I would have went and hired, actually, is Garrett Riley. That's who I would have hired if I was Boo Corrigan. So I think Clemson did something here.
Yes.
I think that's been their biggest. Now, the second biggest problem is not just the person calling plays. They do not have the skill players that they do. And I have certain feelings about Will Shipley and having 25 relatives who graduated from NC State and not going to NC State.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to put those aside. I think Will Shipley is a perfectly fine player.
Ooh.
He's just a perfectly fine player. I don't think he's ETN. I don't think he's CJ Spiller. I don't think he's a Nuke Hopkins. I don't think he's a hammer. I don't think he's a game breaker.
That's why you got Phil Maffa. No, they've got a true 1-2 punch where, like, Shipley becomes, I mean, what was it? It was CJ Spiller and James Davis.
Yes. Look at the deep
that
pull.
Was Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah. And I kind of,
when Spiller touched the ball, you knew something was happening.
CJ Spiller was special, and I'm not claiming that Shipley is that, but stylistically, I do think that we've got some of that. And with the tempo that they are going to run in Garrett Riley's system, like defense gets caught all of a sudden in a bad mismatch, or someone like misses a call, any open space.
Did they go into the portal and get any receivers?
They did not get anyone except for Bear Bryant's great grandson.
Okay.
Paul Tyson, a quarterback who started at Alabama as a walk-on and then went to Arizona State, is the old. No, I think there might be one other guy, but Listen, that is, I was talking to Wes Durham and Roddy Jones about this yesterday. The way do we sell this from a narrative perspective? Because I'm giving you the hard, like Clemson's ahead of Florida State, but it's portal built versus portal averse. Like that is the battle for the top of the ACC. And from like the future of college football, it's kind of an interesting thing to consider.
I'm going to be boring on this one. I'm going to go push. I think they're a 10-2 team.
I think
so. If the number's 10, I say 10-2.
I say 11-1 or 12-0.
Okay. I don't know about that. I want to see significant improvement from their receivers. I do think their offense will be better. I do like the Cade Klubnik switch. I thought that he should have been their quarterback last year, but I still have major questions about their receiving group. So 10-2. I do think they win the ACC. We're in agreement there. All right.
Peter Woods. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. That's a name. You got a name for me.
Do you remember when Dexter Lawrence came in as a freshman and all of us were like, oh God.
Yes.
Peter Woods.
Speaking of locals, is he a defensive lineman?
Defensive lineman.
Okay.
And he played 7A Alabama football and he showed up in spring and everybody was like, oh no.
That's what an impact freshman looks like.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Florida State. Their total's 9.5. On some fronts, they are the preseason favorite to win the ACC. Obviously not quite in Vegas yet. The over on this is -130. The under is +100. Last year, they went 10-3. They went 5-3 in the league last year. So they may not be where a lot of people who don't follow the league think they are. Of course, the big issue here is they play Florida and LSU out of the league. But let's start with what I think are their for sure wins. Southern Miss, at BC, VT, Syracuse, Duke, North Alabama.
Mm-hmm. North Alabama.
Okay. I don't have any sure losses again for Florida State. I don't see a game where they're definitely going to lose. Coin toss category, I do have 6. I have LSU, Clemp, at Wake, at Pitt, Miami, at Florida. So do the same thing. Give them the 6 wins. They go halfway. That's 9-3. That's an under.
Mm-hmm.
I think they ultimately split with those SEC teams. I think they lose to Clemp. They should beat Wake. They should beat Miami. Man, 10-2 is asking a lot of this group, I think. So here, with this schedule,
it is the second toughest schedule in the ACC.
Okay.
I think. The reason we can both be excited about Florida State while also criticizing that they aren't as close to Clemson. But the reason that we are excited is like they haven't been built out like this. And like, this has been a slow build for Mike Norvell.
And they've done well in the portal.
It is portal
the
built.
Receiver that they lost in the portal is the one that I'm concerned about. The kid they had from Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Micah Pittman?
Yes.
Okay.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Went to Utah.
Well, Johnny Wilson's getting all this love. And listen, you know that Johnny Wilson, if he had hands, Florida State would have beaten NC State.
Yes.
And I hate when I'm bashing wide receivers for having frying pan hands, but like because I couldn't do it, you know, like that's why I sometimes feel bad about it. But I saw Johnny Wilson show up on a like preseason All-American team. I was like, oh, okay, sorry about that. Trey Benson at running back is phenomenal. Yes. The offensive line is very good. The tight ends are great. The defense is solid. The pass defense, like the secondary, is absolutely elite. When I had to call this game by game, I came out with 10-2, with the only losses being LSU and at Clemson. Mm-hmm. I do think that the way that they are built on the offensive line is going to make it really tough for Wake Forest defense.
Yeah.
And Pitt is just a big question mark for me right now. So I would we have to lay money to go to the over. It would generally be a pass for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think 9-3 is probably the right answer. I'm with you. LSU, Clemp, they lose those games, but of those other 4, you're saying they're definitely going to win all 4 of those games. I don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're ready to just run roughshod yet. Like, I think they have talent. I think the coach has done a really good job. I think they've hit it in the portal. I don't like the Pittman loss. That was the one player last year who I watched, and I said, this is what NC State's problem is. They need to go get a player like that out of the portal. That guy was a difference maker, in my opinion. I think that cost them. I'm actually going to go under here with Florida State. Again, though, nothing wrong with them going 9-3 after where they've been. Gives them a chance again to stack that double-digit win total. But I could be wrong. Maybe.
Speaking of wide receiver, they added a guy named Keon Coleman from Michigan State, who was part of the exodus from the Mel Tucker dumpster fire in East Lansing, where their returning starting quarterback and best returning receiver were among players to leave after spring practice.
Oh, that hurts the most.
And Keon Coleman was, somebody who, if he had been in the early part of the portal window, would have been one of the top wide receivers in the portal. So
that's a win.
He comes in, you get Jaheim Bell from South Carolina. Like I think they plug and play pretty well right now.
All right, let's move to Louisville, who I will be taking in Danville. Their number is 8. The over is -120. The under is -110. They went 8-5 last year. That was with Scott Satterfield. I can't endorse this enough without even knowing a single thing about Louisville other than their new coach does not fool around. And this is also the coach that they've been pining for and had wanted the last go round, but the Big Ten money spoke to him a little bit. And decided to stay at Purdue. But now Brom comes home. 8. I have 7 sure wins for them. I have 7 sure wins for them.
This is a 9-3 team. And if you're making the wager on 8, you've got, and this, you said you don't like round number.
Yeah.
And I know like some people hate this, especially when we're talking about you're investing it. You're not going to get any payback, but you've got push insurance here. Because what Louisville ain't going is 7-5. And
I have 7 sure wins for this team.
Yeah,
7.
You wanna go ahead and go through it, or should we just mention right now that they only have 3 true road games?
I mean,
they're gonna go play,
and one of them is Atlanta.
They're gonna play against Georgia Tech in a building that's filled with red seats. And it's an easy flight. Like you can get on a Delta flight from Louisville to Atlanta so easily. And that's the other thing is they are so fired up about Jeff Brom that they're going to travel. So supposed road games that they have, we already mentioned the Georgia Tech one. The other one against Indiana in Lucas Oil Field, that's an hour-and-a-half drive. And who's more fired up about football this year, Louisville or Indiana? Like they have the opportunity right now where like at NC State, at Pitt, at Miami. Okay. Like, I have
those in the coin toss.
Yeah, like those are going to be really tough. But even if those don't go your way, everything else is just right there in your backyard.
I think you're with me on that one. We won't spend too much more time on the Cardinals.
Oh, can I keep going?
I mean, you can. To me, Louisville feels like now that they have what feels like the right coach situation. And I understood what Satterfield did leaving App State. I mean, he was pretty patient. The fit, though, the culture fit in terms of what you have to, the level you have to recruit at, the type of player that you're recruiting, it's a little bit more instant. It's a little bit more not development.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not trying to impugn Scott Satterfield. I think he's probably going to do well. Probably.
We're going to do the Big 12 win total show next.
I think he's probably going to do well because I think there'll probably be more patience involved in terms of the development, in terms of once he gets that thing running hot, I think he'll be fine. Louisville never wanted to get to, he never wanted to get to year 5 at Louisville, right? He was ready after year 1 to get out of there. So there is something to that. But I just think Louisville is always going to have talent. Always. For just based on who they recruit. I think now NIL too, you add that in. This is a motivated group. They probably still wish they had Papa John and all of his racism on the side, but
I think it's the 3rd best transfer portal class in the ACC.
Easily.
25 transfers,
Easily.
Including one of his old quarterbacks in Jack Plummer.
Yes.
He got Jamari Thrash from Georgia State, who is one of the top wide receivers in the Sun Belt.
I saw the Thrash was the one that jumped out to me.
Because Thrash is like, oh, that's Rondell Moore. That's David Bell. That's Charlie Jones. Like
all the success that Brom had at Purdue.
Yeah. All of the wide receivers that Brom has been able to send on to the NFL. Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm putting a star next to Louisville as best bet.
Yes. And also go get it now because the price is moving.
Okay, it keeps moving. Let's move on to, I want to close the segment with Carolina. So let's move on to Miami, who last year, what a disappointment under Mario Cristobal. They went 5-7. They were obviously a mess on the offensive side. I don't think any of the players like Cristobal. I think it was a struggle.
He was begging parents to come pick up their kids.
Yeah, like he was ready to clear house. So now they're at 7.5 this year, and it's right down the middle, -115 both sides. I've got 5 wins for Miami. They play the other Miami. They play Bethune-Cookman. They play Temple. They play GT, although GT has had some success against them. And they play Virginia. I have at Florida State as a definite loss. And then in the coin toss category, I have Texas A&M, Carolina, Clemp, NC State, Louisville, Boston College.
I think Texas A&M is a loss.
Okay.
I think Bobby P is going to get that offense on track.
Okay.
And we're like, I don't think Texas A&M is ready to make a run at Bama or LSU.
But they're ready to run over Miami.
They are 100% ready to run over Miami. And I do think Miami will be better. I am encouraged.
But better is 7-5, isn't it? I mean, after going 5-7,
yes.
7-5 in year 2.
Yes. I think Texas A&M is a loss. I'm going to say at North Carolina is a loss.
Mm-hmm. Carolina's had their number.
Yes. Clemson is a loss, Florida State, and then Louisville.
Okay. So this is an easy under for you.
I think so. And aren't we like going to have to pay a little bit here too?
The number on Caesars with your CBS Sports was -115.
-115.
So they're basically saying,
yeah.
They're throwing their hands up in the air too.
Yeah, you figure it out.
All right, one more Big East expat before we get to the Tar Heels. That's Pitt. This is a team under Narduzzi's been a consistent 8-9 win team. They've also won the Coastal twice
and the conference,
and they won the conference the year that NC State should have. This total is at 7, and again split right down the middle, -115 both sides. They were 9-4 last year. Boy, this is a tough one for me because I've only got 3 wins that I know of for them that I feel really good about: Wofford, VT, Boston College. I've only got 1 loss that's up at Notre Dame. I got 8 coin tosses for them.
That's very. I mean, you know that Pat Narduzzi is like everything ends up being a 1-score game.
Yeah,
you know, it's going to come down to somebody having to make a kick in a Pitt football game.
Yes, and blew it. Actually, took care of them.
All right. So, what are your toss-ups?
I have for toss-ups for Pitt: Cincy at West Virginia, Carolina, Lou at Wake, FSU at Cuse, at Duke.
Okay, so except for Cincy, we are in lockstep right there.
Which way you got, Cincinnati? Cincy
win.
Okay.
I think Cincinnati might be the 12th best team in the 14-team Big 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every newcomer except UCF is going to be stepping in and going, "Yo!"
Oh, because trying to keep up with those
in
offenses.
the Big 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They've got Emory Jones as their quarterback. Do you remember Emory Jones, the failed Florida quarterback?
Vaguely.
Oh,
that's a deep cut, though.
Yeah. I mean, it is not good out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you going to go over? This
am.
feels like a push.
I'm going to go over.
Okay. I'll give Narduzzi benefit of the doubt.
Without a doubt.
To 8. Get to 8.
And this is the thing, too, is they've got a defensive line coach named Charlie Partridge, and they turned 3 stars into NFL draft picks. So the fact that they're like 3 new starters on the defensive line, you don't look at that as a drop-off. You know, you don't say like, oh, no, what are they going to do right there? It's like they've had this in the plan. They're going to be fine on that. All
right. Now let's get to the Tar Heels. 8.5 is the total. Last year, they go 9-5. They win the Coastal Division the last year. The over on this is +110. So they're basically saying, we don't feel great about that. And then the under is -140, which they're basically telling you they think Carolina is an 8-4 team. Independent of that, I had Carolina pegged at 8-4. I got 3 wins: Syracuse, Virginia, Campbell. I've got only 1 loss in Clemson, at Clemson.
Agree.
Then I've got 8 coin tosses. So I just had them. I went true right down the middle on this. Actually, no, I gave them 5-3 because of Drake May. So I've got them winning 5 of their 8 coin tosses and then the 3 wins. I got them going 8-4.
Wait, so all right, I'm going to give you the toss-ups that I have. Tell me which one is not, because I had 6 toss-ups. I had South Carolina, Minnesota, at Pitt, Miami, Duke, NC State.
Oh, App State.
You've got App.
I got App State and Georgia Tech as coin tosses. Remember, they lost to Georgia Tech last year. We're going to get to Georgia Tech, but I'm just saying you don't know what Georgia Tech is going to look like this year.
That's fair.
And they're certainly going to be motivated to play who they've beaten Carolina now 2 years in a row.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I mean, it's just,
I'm just saying this is, we'll get to this when we talk about NC State and Wake Forest.
I'm just saying that
at some point we have to give the other team who keeps beating the team we expect to beat them. At some point we have to give them a little bit of credit.
Josh Downs is an NFL receiver. I can't believe he didn't catch that ball.
That was difficult.
And that's, I mean, like,
and I'm a big Josh Downs fan.
I'm a big Josh Downs fan.
Knows I'm a big Josh Downs
I'm a big Josh Downs fan too, but like, that's how you go from 9-1 to 9-5.
Yeah.
Because if they win that game, they're 10-1, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's the complexion of how they finished that season. And I think it's kind of coloring how we look at Carolina right now because of the way that they stumbled at the finish last year. I honestly, their first year when they went 6-7, Or did they go 7-6 the first? They went 7-6 the first year.
7-6 because Sam Howell lit up Temple in a bowl game and everyone went crazy.
But that first year, that schedule was very difficult, and they won some games early. They lost some games early, but that was a tough schedule.
Mm-hmm.
The other years in MAC 2.0, I think their schedule has been easy, which is one of the reasons I picked them in 21 to actually win the ACC. Their schedule was a joke, and they could not get out of their own way on their offensive line. I don't know how much better their offensive line is going to be. To me, that's the big question for Carolina.
Sure.
Not who's calling the plays. I think they'll be fine on the offensive side. Not all of the 4 and 5 star guys they've lost on the defensive side. I think if they play at a replacement level on defense, they'll be fine. Don't do anything stupid.
If they play Power 5 replacement level, it's an upgrade on what they've done recently. Yes.
And I do think Gene Chizik can do that out of this group. And I'm not worried about all of the guys who left. I think they still have talent there. There's probably going to be some even more simplifying to what they do. But I think secondary wise, I think they've gotten rid of some guys who, quite frankly, either didn't live up to their billing or, losing Storm Duck hurts. I think he's a good player. But the safety, I hate myself when I have to call somebody out like that, but he was just never in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, he was just never in the right place. And every time I watch them play, I'm like, this guy is not where he's supposed to be. Like, I'm sorry. And he's someone who had been over there, a former coach, not for them, but a former coach in the area, told me, he's like, that kid who looks like Javon Curse in practice. Because when you go look at him, he's an unbelievable athlete. And that's why the coaches love him. That's why they put him out there. He's like, but you're right. He just doesn't know where to be. He's never in the right spot.
And that falls on coaching, and there were some changes made there too.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to absolve the coaches, and I'm not trying to pin all of the blame on Kelly. He reminds me of Josh Jones at NC State. Early in his career, like once State figured out that Josh Jones could make every play in front of him, he was outstanding, made the NFL.
Because then you schemed it up that way.
Yeah. You're like, oh, he can make plays in front of him. So let's make sure everything's in front of him. The second you have him chasing and in coverage and all these other things, that's where the struggles happen. So I look at this and I look at Carolina, and Drake May, my love and appreciation for him is well noted on all forms of my shows. But I think it's 8-4. I don't think that's a bad thing either with this schedule.
Correct.
I think this is a tough schedule.
Yes.
Minnesota is not a layup. App State is not a layup. South Carolina, you said there's some changes there. I think they'll still be fired up. And again, you want to give somebody credit. South Carolina, no matter whoever the crappy coach Muschamp was, even he beat State in 17. They beat the Marquise Williams team down there too. It's like, okay, I'm just going to give South Carolina the benefit of the doubt at this point that they're going to. And then the Mayonnaise Bowl where they did beat
North Carolina
in this version of MAC. So I just think this is a tough schedule, and I know some people will look at it and go, well, they do play Clemson. So, but it just, to me, it just feels like this is a much tougher schedule than they've had to deal with.
So
other than Mac's first year,
we're talking about an 8.5. If you want to look at a swing game, I'll tell you that why I'm to the under, and I agree with you that 8-4. It is that I have Minnesota at home a loss, and here's why. It is a stylistic problem for North Carolina when Minnesota has the football and North Carolina is on defense, because Notre Dame brought 0 quarterbacks to Chapel Hill and just decided our offensive line is bigger and our running backs are good and we're going to run over you. And Minnesota's offensive line is big and beefy, and that's what they do. And they've got a new quarterback, the Greek Freak, who is like, kind of breaking him in. They're not going to test him. It's early in the season. PJ Fleck is going to look on tape, and he's going to look at that Notre Dame game, and he's going to say, look, our offensive line is bigger than their defensive front. All we need to do is keep the ball out of Drake May's hands. That's the game plan for Minnesota to get in and out of Chapel Hill with the win. And unfortunately, it's a game plan that's worked before. So I've got Minnesota at Pitt, at Clemson, at NC State as the losses. South Carolina, App State, Syracuse, Miami, Virginia, at Georgia Tech, Campbell, Duke as the wins. 8-4, an expensive under ticket.
We are in agreement. We both like the under. Let's pay some bills.
Next topic, please.
All right, now is the time if you're looking to move, to buy a house. Now's the time to get ready for next school year, the summer. And you know who can handle this? Hometown Realty. Barry Woodard and his group, they have more than 250 agents Chip, imagine having 250 people on your podcast team. That's amazing. They have 6 locations: Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Selma, and Atlantic Beach. Check them out. It's myhtr.com. They have all your real estate needs, residential, commercial, or rental. If you're looking to buy or sell, check them out. It's myhtr.com. And longtime listeners of this program know exactly where we're going next, as Chip Patterson is a longtime listener of this program. We are going to Whitaker and Hamer, because once you sell and need to close on that house, you're going to need a lawyer. That's where Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer come into play. They got more than 20 years experience. They can help you close on a house, start a business, sell a business, anything that's family law related. Check them out in Raleigh, Clayton, Fuquay, Morehead City. And of course, all of the G's: Goldsboro, Gastonia, and Garner. They have the world's greatest URL. It's wh.lawyer. That's wh.lawyer. 919-772-7000. If you want to get on the horn and call them for all of your law needs. All right, let's see how quick they can do this.
Next topic, please.
Oh my goodness, look at that. I'm getting so good. Now let's get into the bottom of the ACC, and Chip Patterson, Cover 3 podcast, CBS Sports, joining me here on Law of the Wolf. Appreciate him taking some time coming here to the Eford Studios. Of course, our good friends here at Empire Eats. After we do this, Chip, lunch is on me. Raleigh Times action. I know you're excited about this.
am.
Your job today will be to talk me out of getting the nachos, because I get the nachos every single time.
I know.
It's a struggle. We'll see how persuasive you can be when we get over there to the Raleigh Times. Shout out to my guy Greg Hayden. All right, let's get to the bottom of the league, because I feel like there's a distinct bottom of the league. And I think Syracuse is going to be mad at me for putting them in the...
I'm mad at you for putting Syracuse in the... Because the other 4 teams are legitimate, that we're about to talk about, are legitimately worse than your average FBS team. Yes. Not your average Power 5 team. The other 4 teams that we're going to talk about later would be a field goal or more underdog against the average FBS team. Syracuse is not.
I just wonder who Syracuse is going to beat. Now, they're going to have their defense is going to be salty.
Mm-hmm.
It's been that way for the last few years under Dino Babers. Their quarterback play, Garrett Schrader, we saw what he did last year. How much of that was Robert and how much of that wasn't? I don't know. You're going to tell me potentially that Beck is can handle the play calling.
Well, yeah, they're not changing. Yeah, they're not changing the scheme. They promoted the quarterback's coach to offensive coordinator, as you just mentioned. His name is Jason Beck, and around the program, there was sort of this sense of like nothing is really going to change. And, to use an ACC example, when Chad Morris left Clemson, and like, I know that we talked about how the Clemson offense has tanked recently, but, Chad Morris wasn't there for the national championships.
Right.
That's fair. And Dabo said it's the Clemson offense. It's not the Chad Morris offense. I think that especially with they don't have Sean Tucker. Look, that dude was a boss running the football. But I do think in general, they are going to be sort of keeping the same mentality of staying dynamic.
They play Florida State. They play Clemson. They play Purdue on the road. They play, obviously, they play Wake.
But
now, I see some wins here. They
exploited a loophole in the 8+1 agreement. Remember, in the 8+1 agreement, you do 8 conference games plus 1 Power 5 opponent. And they are not the only ones to do this. Boston College is also doing this.
Okay. What are they doing?
Army apparently qualifies as the Power 5 opponent. Oh, no, they play at Purdue.
They play Purdue.
Boston College.
Don't confuse me.
Boston College. We'll get to them later, but Boston College exploited that.
So Vegas thinks Syracuse is going under. It's -150. The total 6.5. Overs +120. Unders -150. They were a 7-6 team last year. I see 3 wins. Colgate, 3 for sure wins. Colgate, Western Michigan, and Army. I see 2 for sure losses at Carolina, at Florida State. I got 7 coin tosses. I got them going. I got at best, they're going 3 and 4 in these coin tosses. At best. I got them as a best case scenario 6-6 team.
Wow.
Best case scenario.
All right. My wins: Colgate, Western Michigan, Army, Boston College, at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
My losses: Klemp.
Don't forget, like, those other teams are going to nut up at some point and like win a game. They're not all going to be terrible.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Klemp, at North Carolina, at Florida State are your losses. And then when we get into our toss-ups, I'll go one by one. At Purdue, you got a new head coach, Ryan Walters, taking over there for Jeff Brom. Kind of a little bit of a reload, and they're getting him early in the season. At Virginia Tech, that one could be a little bit tricky. Both teams are coming off a bye, but it's going to be Thursday night, Inner Sandman, yada, yada, yada. Pitt at home. That one's always a little bit of a rivalry game. The Pat Narduzzi, Dino Babers back and forth is pretty good. And then Wake Forest, another sneaky rivalry game. Do you remember that the kicker slipped in the Wake Syracuse game last year?
Syracuse has had more success against Wake Forest than I usually give them credit for.
So I give them, because Wake and Pitt are both going to be at home, I've got those as wins. I've got them as a 7-5 team with Purdue, Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, and at Virginia Tech. Again, at Virginia Tech being the nut up game, where it's like both teams have had a week off. You're going into Lane Stadium. Brent Pry has done a pretty good job of at least maintaining the vibes, and the recruiting is going a little bit better too. It's just
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So you're going.
I'm going over.
5. Okay, I'm going under 6-6. It'll be weird. They don't play State. This is one of those Atlantic Division rivalries that we have to say goodbye to. Unfortunately, but you know what? The divisionless football, you don't have to say goodbye because it's not 7 years anymore.
Right.
You play every team, twice in a 4-year period. All right. So let's go to Virginia. I think we're going to be in agreement here. Virginia sold 3.5. I mean, the over is -110, the under is -120. Not a big discrepancy there. They were a 3-7 team a year ago. Chip,
listen,
is there a for sure win on Virginia's schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I made the case that William and Mary went to the FCS quarterfinals and went 11-2 last year.
Right.
So it's like not an easy layup win, but I think that Virginia should be able to do that. JMU is a legitimate toss-up. James Madison being a top 4 team in the Sun Belt, and the fact
I don't think they're going to beat James Madison after getting the brakes beat off them by Tennessee. I don't think they're showing up for that one.
That is such a tough spot. I made that case in my article. I was like, look, the conference draw is more favorable for them than the non-conference draw. The league office, which did not put a Clemson or a Florida State on this schedule, did more for Tony Elliott in a pivotal year 2 than his own school, which has him playing Tennessee and Nashville, and also has him going up to play Maryland.
I don't think they're going to go 0-12. But if they go 2-10, I actually think that'll be a pretty good.
Yeah,
given this schedule,
I've got them 3-9, but like the fact that 3-9 even still means we're going under. If Louisville is the star for over, I mean, I think the UVA is the star for your favorite underplay.
I just don't see it coming home. The less we say about Virginia, probably the best. Let's get to the Hokies then. 5.5. They were 3-8 last year. Brent Pry's first year. Obviously a proud program. When I watched them here in Raleigh for a Thursday night game, I thought, and it was probably their best game of the year. I was like, they just don't have dudes. They just don't have guys. I could see what Pry's trying to do, get back to Beamer ball, get back to some of the ways that they want to play. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, they just don't have it.
Well, and specifically, like, correct me if I'm wrong, you saw that they didn't have guys on offense. They just like could not move the football.
I wasn't exactly thrilled with who
the
was
defense
buzzing around. Yeah. There was no Cam Chancellors jumping through hoops on defense either, man.
It's going to take a minute to get all that cleared up.
So 5.5 must mean they have a fairly manageable schedule. They were 3-8 last year. The under, they're saying there is no value in you betting the under. I mean, they go to Florida State, go to Louisville. They got NC State on a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. And then the coin toss is ODU, Purdue, Rutgers, Marshall, Pitt, Wake, Syracuse, BC, Virginia. I mean, what you got? 5.5 seems high.
I got 5 and 7.
Yeah, I was going to say they go 5 and 7. That's a pretty good year.
5 and 7 is a little bit generous, probably too. The Purdue and at Rutgers, at Marshall. The problem is Marshall's good.
That's what I'm saying. State added Marshall, and I'm like, no, you wanted to add like Bemidji State. You did want to add because Cincinnati fell off the schedule. They moved Cincinnati off the schedule because of the Big 12. As Cincinnati told them, hey, we're not playing you. Basically, it was a break for State. But adding Marshall was not a great idea.
I've got under.
Marshall went to Notre Dame and won last year,
and you'll know, their head coach Charles Huff is an old Saban assistant.
Okay.
And I liked.
Well, isn't everybody at this point?
Well, I know, but he was
like
was
an actual save, not the reclamation project.
he was a running backs coach at a time when they still had running backs.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you remember back when Alabama did have running backs?
All those guys winning the Heisman.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that stretch in the early part of the season, Purdue at Rutgers at Marshall, you'll know one way or the other, like where this is going. But I think it's an under.
All right, Boston College and GT. We could probably do them together. 5.5 for BC, 4.5 for GT. I love Jeff Hafley. 5.5 is starchy though, even with 4 shore wins on that schedule.
Yeah. So
Heck, I'll take my guy. I'll go over with my guy. I'll take it.
This is the one that I was thinking of. I mean, their non-conference schedule is Northern Illinois, Holy Cross, UConn, and Army.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Where's the Power 5 up? And maybe like something got canceled, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there is some reason for that.
Well, there was never any punishment for that, by the way.
Like
I remember when they put that rule out, and I said to Debbie Yao, former NC State AD, I go, so what happened if you didn't schedule a Power 5 time? She's like, nothing.
You get heckled.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so what is the incentive to go out and murder yourself in these non-conference games? I'm going to go over for BC because I love Hafley.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else, and their offensive line would be better.
It has to be,
right?
Do you remember what happened last year? So Christian Mahogany is an NFL draft pick, and hopefully he can stay healthy. He goes down before the season even starts last year. 2 more interior offensive line starters go down in the first 2 weeks. They used in the first 10 games of the season, which is basically the whole season, 10 different offensive line combinations. It got so bad that they were using a defensive tackle and a pizza guy to be able to come and play offensive line for and the only thing that they could do is just throw the ball in the air like you're playing 500 and hope Zay Jones goes to get it. And
I was going to say that's Flowers. That's the guy you were both going to have
Flowers,
him on our NFL fantasy teams this year, right?
Yeah, not Zay Jones. Shout out to the Pirates here on the
you just had ECU on the brain. That's all.
So they went and got a guy named Ryan O'Keefe from UCF. All right, that's not your Zay Flowers.
No.
That's
I love Hafley. I don't care. Schedule's amenable. There's always one surprise team. I usually do this every year. There's one team that you think, everyone's like, they're going to be good. Then they're not. And then there's usually one team where everyone's like, they're going to stink. And then they're actually pretty good.
Right.
I'm not saying BC is going to tear it up, but there's a reason this is at 5.5. And it is the schedule. And I do believe in Hafley. So I say they go 6 and 6.
My colleague Bud Elliott is deep into this stuff.
When you say that, yes.
No, I'm saying deep into the gambling side of things.
Yeah.
And he's said that it is I forgot who ran the analysis, but it is almost worth taking every 5.5 over. Motivation, at the end of the season, if all
that is a big part of it.
If all you're needing is for this team to care to make a bowl game,
then yes, that's going to be a part of it.
You might have a part of it. And for Boston College, after the way things went last year, you got to think that when they get those games against UConn and Virginia Tech at home, I mean, heck, they've kind of had Miami's number.
I was going to say they're going to get somebody at home too. So
I would keep all that in mind.
All right, GT. They did the let's promote the interim. They did it worked for Clemson. Why can't it work for us?
I thought it was that we don't want to spend money.
Oh, is that what? Funny story. When we brought pizza to Josh Pastner, he goes, when we beat Miami, I went over to our number 1 donor and I said, you guys should build a statue of me. Because their payroll, I forgot what the number was. He's like, they spend more than $1 million in name, image, NIL. He goes, our NIL payroll is negative money. And I worry. I do worry about Georgia Tech because they have a whole thing with academics. They have a whole thing of being in Atlanta and nobody really caring about them. And they have a great history. Don't get me wrong. And I love it for ACC purposes when Georgia Tech is good. But I do worry about Georgia Tech basketball and Georgia Tech football.
So
in the NIL era,
I have been wrong for a lot of years about the specifics of the academics when it comes to Georgia Tech, and people have come and set me straight because I always thought that it was along the lines of a Duke or a Wake Forest or one of these other schools where you think about the academics as being a barrier for entry. And the problem is it's not the barrier for entry that is so demanding. Actually
put them in the majors.
It is the workload when you get there. And in the transfer portal era, what's going to happen is that somebody's going to flash and all these other schools are going to say, so what do you want to do next year? Do you want to have to go to every single class and grind through all this coursework? Or do you want to come do all online and just get yourself ready for the NFL? And
I think you know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really tough
I legitimately worry.
Yeah.
In terms of, I have wondered, when the ACC talks about these nuclear options of blowing the thing up, there might be some teams who decide they don't want to do this anymore. Boston College and Georgia Tech might end up being in that option.
Our friend Andrew Carter was with another one of our friend.
Yeah.
Andrew Carter was on with Hayes Permar on the Adam Gold Show. Boy, there's a name of Triangle Sports personalities. But and that's what Andrew was talking about when he said, I just wonder if when the line in the sand is drawn, if there are teams in the ACC that we're used to seeing every year, just throw their hands up and be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Nope, no thanks.
So let's go under with the Jackets and let's move it along.
What's up next? What's up next?
I feel like sports cards would be under your wheelhouse, Chip Patterson.
I am excited to go see Weston to get 2 big booklets flipped through, graded.
Ooh.
Let me know. Let me know what we got in here.
Yes, that is definitely what you need to do. I don't know about you though. My most recent visit to Oak City Sports Cards, I bought a box of those Bowman Chrome, the university cards. So it has all the college players. I got my man Tony Grimes. I did get a Josh Downs cards because from last year's set. I got all the quarterbacks though: Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. I also got Cade Klubnik.
Yes.
Which is his rookie card. And then Brendan Armstrong. Now he's in a Virginia uniform, but I got Brendan Armstrong. I also got 2 autographs in that set, including Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm just pretty happy about that. Yeah, you can get actually cards of college players. I know it's kind of a foreign concept. But yes, most importantly, do what Chip just said. Go check out Weston. Oak City Sports Cards are in downtown. Buy, sell, trade. You can also get your memorabilia graded. That's what Weston does best. I had a couple of Michael Jordan rookie cards that he graded for me, got him graded for me. I was ended up getting a great deal on those. So go check them out, oakcitycards.com. They're also right there in downtown, right off of Glenwood. And while we're here, I don't know if I have the actual right tag for this because Anthony, my man Anthony, is our Hey Joe sponsor. So let's just use that right there. How about that? The best pizza, not only in Raleigh, but in all of North Carolina. Oakwood Pizza Box. Check them out. oakwoodpizzabox.com. They're actually closed this week, but next week they'll be back in business. Great salads, great pizza, great cannolis, great beer, great wine. I'm really not sure what else anybody else wants in this world.
And the neighborhood is so fantastic that dining in, by the way, is incredible. Love the cups, love the tables, the way everything is set up. But power move here, and I'm giving game away to those in the hood. But Pelagic, the bottle shop right around the corner, you can pick up pizza and then take it around the corner, and they will let you just sit and eat it right there.
Perfect.
Next topic, please.
Let's go back to the in-person Heister Automotive Group hotline. Shouts, get off your Keister, head down to Heister, get yourself a car. Heister Automotive Group, join our proud sponsors, the hotline. But today it's the in-person hotline. We're at the Eford Studios in downtown. Thanks to our friends at Empire Properties. Shouts to my guy, Greg Hayden. We're heading over Raleigh Times.
That's right.
But now, while you're here, we got to get these locals. We got to get these locals on these win totals. Let's start with Wake Forest, the forever thorn in the Wolfpack side. Total is 6.5, over plus 120. So Vegas is saying, under minus 150. Vegas does not believe in the Deeks, who went 8-5, lost Sam Hartman. What says you, Chip? 6.5 feels kind of sharp to me.
Well, first let's address the Sam Hartman departure.
Yeah,
because when Dave Clawson had do you remember some of his comments like at the time? It's like Sam's got a great opportunity to go make some money to play football. Like it is him calling it like it is and saying farewell, but it is also telling you what he and offensive coordinator Warren Ruggiero think about the quarterback in Mitch Griffiths.
Yeah. Because
that guy's been in the program for 3 years. They have been getting him ready for this moment. And they, granted, we only saw him against VMI for just like a hot second. Well, I mean, he played the whole game, but VMI. I I think that he is going to be very effective within the offense. I think that while they don't have A.T. Perry, they do return Donovan Green if he can stay healthy, and Jamal Banks is the name of the next guy up who I think is going to be a stud wide receiver. I mean, they keep churning through.
I was going to say the one thing they've done better than anyone else in this league, and particularly since Clemson's fallen off in this category,
wide receivers
is find and develop receivers.
Well,
Top notch.
Well, it's the whole incubation machine that they've got at Wake Forest, where you come in, you redshirt, and the coaching staff is incredible. I do worry about the defensive side of the football, and so when I go through the schedule, it's kind of like how much of a threat is the opposing offense, and so you start to break down Wake Forest. You're like, all right, well, Elon's not going to be like a huge threat here. I think they can probably be able to outscore Vandy.
Yeah,
at ODU, man, are you just going to recruit the Tidewater? You're just going to take in the best of Norfolk? Come on. But I do think that's a win. Georgia Tech, we'll get to them in a little bit. Georgia Tech, we already talked about. I've got that as a win. Virginia Tech doesn't have an offense. I've got Wake in a spot where they probably finish 7-5.
I could see it. I have two definite losses at Clemson. They're never going to beat Clemson. At Notre Dame, they're not beating Notre Dame. Elon, Vandy, ODU, GT. I gave them State too because they just beat State down there. That's what they do.
I gave them Duke too.
Did not give them Duke. I got Pitt, Florida State, Duke, and Cuse as coin tosses. But if I go with a split, it's 7-2. I mean, excuse me, it's 7-5. 2-2 in the tosses. Plus 120 is inviting. Plus 120 is inviting.
So this is something else to consider. By the way, like my recommendation on a Wake total is to stay away. Like this is.
Oh, it's coming down to whatever. It's going to come down to that State and the Duke games for sure.
Well, what about the fact that they have to finish at Notre Dame at Cuse? That's a brutal finish.
Well, Cuse could be the one that they need.
And isn't late season Wake a thing?
It's been a struggle. Yeah.
And why is that? Is it because?
Well, they don't have the depth. So any kind of injury is going to derail them. And then once they, because what was this team? 17. That team was unbelievable in 17. The way that they started, and then all of a sudden, or 18. Well, maybe it was 19. Wait a second. I'm getting my State and Wake. 19. They started unbelievably, and then they fell apart. That team should have been like 11-1.
Well, it's like number one, they do put favorable games on the non-conference schedule, so you start to like stack it up there.
They're going to start fast this year too.
And then number two, the thing that Dave Clawson I think pushed back on was the idea that opposing defenses start to get the answers to the test.
Yeah,
enough on tape of this group, you start to figure out the counters, and then it gets a little bit more difficult to be as effective coming down the stretch.
I agree with him. I don't think people are solving what they do. I just think it's a matter of injuries.
Yeah,
19 is the one I'm thinking of in particular when Surratt and some of the other receivers started to fall off, and then it was like, oh, by the end of it, they had nobody out there, and you're like, well, they can't win with those guys. I'll take the over. I believe in Clawson. Plus 120 is inviting too. I think 7-5 is gettable. Duke is an interesting one. You and I are on the exact same page with Duke. 9-4 last year was unbelievable for Mike Elko. Unbelievable. But they're not playing last year's schedule. They are definitely not playing last year's schedule. Total is 6. Man, this reeks of a push, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, because
and it would be a really good year.
It would be they could be, and I said this on Ovius and Giglio, but they could be a better team 3 losses worse at the end of the season. I mean, this is brutal. Clemson, Florida State, NC State, Louisville, Wake Forest. You have been
Notre Dame.
What I'm saying, like you've been avoiding the Atlantic Division entirely, and now you get the 5 best programs from the former Atlantic Division. Throw in Notre Dame. I mean, that's really, really tough.
And they're probably they should feel good about themselves after going 9-4. They should feel good about themselves and the players that they were able to keep out of the portal, including their quarterback.
Agree.
Which after watching them early last year, I was like, they could be. I thought Hartman would come back, and I thought Riley Leonard would be the one who would leave. That honestly, after watching last year, people weren't really had their head on a swivel about what NIL really was and what the portal really was. I think they go 6-6. This is
but it's still a really fun football team.
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with going 6-6 against this schedule, by the way.
Like the pieces fit together so well. What's it? I
think UConn's going to get somebody. I don't know if it's them. I think UConn's. No, I'm being serious because they play State, they play Boston College, they play Duke. I could just see it happening.
I mean, Jim Moore.
I think Duke is absolutely going to beat State, by the way.
Jim Moore and the Haunted House have already created some
Yes.
magic right there. But I mean, that staff has done such a good job, not just like with Riley Leonard and keeping him there, but the way that offense, are they all Jordans and Jalen's? All the skill position players, and they all
they can score,
and they all fit in different ways. It's kind of versatile, dynamic. It's really hard to defend. Good defensive line, good offensive line. They run the ball well. Like very much in on Duke, but a push on the 6.
All right, let's get to the Wolfpack. I've seen this at 6.5. I think it has moved to 7. So it's 7. The over is plus 100. The under is minus 130. Again, that means you'd have to bet 130 to win 100 to go under. Last year, they're an 8-4 team. Obviously, some significant departures on the defensive side, significant departures on the offensive side. They do have a new quarterback in Brennan Armstrong, potentially, which I think will be the answer, not MJ Morris. Hopefully they can redshirt MJ Morris and keep him. Like to see that work out. I do have major questions at receiver. I do have major questions at running back. I got major questions on the offensive line as well. I think their schedule is harder than what people might look at it and go, oh, that's not that bad. Because the home schedule is unbelievable in terms of entertainment.
In terms of entertainment, sure.
But it's also really difficult.
But there are two minds there where it's like you would rather have your tough games on the road because you're going to lose them anyway.
Yeah.
And your coin toss games at home.
Yes.
I do think that, I mentioned Clemson as like one of the best home field advantages in the ACC. I don't think the ACC has a lot of good home field advantages.
Agreed.
I think NC State is the only one that you would put. Whatever. NC State is up there. NC State is a top tier home field advantage where teams go in there and they can get got, and coaches talk about it and players talk about it. And like, there's nothing that your audience like doesn't need to hear more, but it just really blows the minds when you're down there on the field and it just feels like it's all caving in on you. And especially when like State gets a big stop and then it goes on a run and then everything just starts moving really fast. I think that, there's a chance that NC State, that's why I've got the Clemson game as a toss-up. Like in my win-loss toss-up analysis.
So do I.
But yeah, it's a very, very difficult schedule, especially, if things start to, you pick up a loss against Notre Dame, like if all of a sudden things go sideways against Louisville, like you could all of a sudden start to feel down on yourself. But here's the thing that I walked into the Eford Studios here in downtown Raleigh. Did Devin Carter leave because he believed that the players behind him were going to jump him on the depth chart, or were there non-football reasons? Because he just joined the worst team in the Big 12 for a head coach who's going to be fired on October 13th.
Where did he end up?
West Virginia.
Okay, so he originally had stopped at Penn State, right?
Okay.
I think that's what
happened.
Yeah. Look, Devin Carter was a massive disappointment last year, other than the Carolina game, in my opinion. I don't know what happened to Devin Carter last year. Quite frankly, I don't.
Because one read on it was like he thinks he's leaving because
he probably got some NIL money too. I mean, I don't blame him for any of that. I honestly, I don't know.
Okay, so no reason for me to be like he's leaving because he thinks his job's about to get taken.
Oh, no. I mean, I will say, from people who watch practice, the true freshmen, Concepcion and Vereen were the two guys who were the most impressive in practice.
Mm-hmm.
That might be an issue because dominating at that position and counting on that position to be like a consistent game breaker is asking a lot.
You need that with this offense.
And you need people who can make plays. I do think Robert Anies is a significant upgrade. And I do think, and people might take that, oh, you're just bagging on Tim Beck, and talk a little football with you here. Last year, Tim Beck, 3 years, first year, the pandemic year, crazy creative. I thought he did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey Hockman, different quarterbacks, did some different things. I enjoyed what he did. The last 2 years with Devin Leary, I thought there was way too many times where the offensive mindset was, okay, go get open. Emeka, go get open and beat your guy. Like, hey, man, this is football. Just go beat your guy. You got to scheme people open.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think NC State did enough of that, where they were putting their receivers in a position to win not just one-on-one battles, but also bunch formations, different motions, different crossing routes. There just wasn't enough combination
It's
routes.
the Hugh Freeze special.
Yes.
Hugh Freeze beats Alabama because he runs these bunch formations, gets them confused, and he is on the chalkboard beating Nick Saban by getting someone wide TF open.
Yeah. And you can have all you need is one or two of those plays and make it easier for yourself.
Correct.
2 years ago with Devin Leary, it was okay. Emeka Emezi can beat people on the outside, but there were still games where you're like, you can help them. Same with Thayer Thomas. You can help them. Doesn't have to be you have to go make this amazing play. Devin Carter against Clemson 2 years ago, where they're here at home and he makes an unbelievable play in the end zone. They win the game in overtime because Clemson's receivers couldn't make similar plays. And I appreciate what Dave has tried to do, getting bigger receivers and making plays, and taking the shots that they take. It's not a matter of being conservative. It's a matter of being predictable, and it's also a matter of not helping your players and putting them in the best position to make plays. Based on what we've seen from Robert and I at Virginia, based on what we've seen from Robert and I at Syracuse, based on going back to his background at BYU, right? Everyone and their mother is in love with Andy Reid right now, and for great reason, okay? But when I talk about scheming people open and I watch the Super Bowl, that's what I'm talking about, okay? This is what I'm shouting from the rooftops. They don't say to Travis Kelce, well, you're the best tight end in the game, so just go beat your guy. No, they scheme him open. The stuff they did with Kadarius Toney on the goal line was off the charts. Now, my dad was a high school football coach for 25 years. I look at, and it annoys the shit out of all these coaches that I actually know a half of a thing about football, right? So all I would say to you are there are new ideas. So when I'm watching a game, when I'm watching TCU, I would write down the play and go, we can do that. I would watch the Super Bowl with Andy Reid. We can do that. Now, some things Patrick Mahomes can do that you can't do. Sure, I get that. But you tell me what was the difference between TCU in 2021 and the difference between TCU in 2022. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's not crazy. This isn't rocket surgery.
Horned Frogs didn't hate their coach, too.
Well, there is that. I just think for NC State this year, I think their offense has a chance to be significantly better, even if the personnel is not better. But I do think you're asking a lot of young playmakers. That's where you're going to need a Trent Penix to stay healthy. That's where you're going to need a Jordan Houston to not just give him the ball on first down and say, here, go run into this brick wall. You got to be a little bit more creative with the stuff that they do.
That offensive line was too good for them to be so ineffective at running the football.
Yeah.
So disappointing.
So I do think there is potential there, but this schedule.
Defensively, pass defense is great. Linebackers are good, and I just have so much trust.
Knock on wood. I want Peyton to be healthy again. Yeah, play the whole year. I would love to see that.
I have so much trust in D'Antonio Burnett and what they do along the defensive line that it's just like
off season.
I got it.
So you say 8-4 is possible for this group, or is 7 feel like the right number?
7 feels like 100% the right number because of the schedule. I think 7-5,
and that would be a fine year.
And look, dude,
again, getting back to Carolina being 8-4, that would be fine. Getting back to some of the to Wake being 7-5, that would be fine. Duke being 6-6. I think if State is 7-5 this year, and it's the right 7, I don't know how you could be mad at 7-5 this year.
And then you come back next year.
Yeah.
And
hopefully, like I said, you can redshirt MJ.
Right.
Let him figure out what Anai wants to do and really flourish. And now Concepcion, now Vereen is going to be a year older, and hopefully you can keep all these guys. That's one of the things Dave's done, and he needs to get more credit for, is not only finding players, developing them, keeping them. Like, think about their portal activity and compare it to a Carolina. Compare it to the players Wake Forest is losing. Shouts to my man Savage Wolves, Tom Lavolsi. That's part of it too. Having the NIL piece is part of it too. State didn't really play the NIL game last year, and I think it hurt them.
The
football.
I was sort of like drifting off, driving in, and I was like, what if? So I'm with you, MJ Morris, as your break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah.
What if
you can still play 4 games in redshirt? I mean, that's a thing too.
But like, what if something happens to Brennan Armstrong? He has to come in, and now you've got like some real versatility, and you can start moving the pocket and.
I just wanted to see MJ Morris start a road game last year. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm sure NC State wanted it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't think going to get a Nye who is going to get Armstrong, right? Like that's part and parcel. I don't think that's an indictment of MJ Morris. or what Dave Doran thinks of MJ Morris. I think it was more of he played last year ahead of schedule. No one in their right mind thought MJ Morris was going to play football for NC State last year. And if it was because
outsiders
they'd get garbage time and you could help develop him and you definitely could redshirt. But he was super young and didn't have spring practice. Mm-hmm. Devin had all of the reps. And if he didn't, it was Jack. Man, I can't even remember the kid's name.
Not Lil Finley.
No. The kid they got out of the portal who they actually paid because they didn't have a scholarship. Oh man, Charleston Southern.
Jack Chambers.
Thank you. At least I had the Jack.
Jack Chambers law.
No, but they got him as backup insurance to Devin, and that turned out to be a mistake. And then Morris comes in, he plays well, but there was a lot of. This is a compliment. There was a lot of young Russell Wilson. And Dana Bible would tell young Russell Wilson, here's your first read. If it's not there, pull it down, take off.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But that's what Morris was. And he got popped a couple of times because he thought he was still running around Carrollton, Georgia somewhere. Now they play high level ball, but they're not playing ACC football there. Yeah, for sure. So I thought there was a couple of times, even in the spring game, there were a couple of times where he ran and I'm like, I don't know, it was raining, but I was kind of like, you understand you're missing the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise is for you to go against the defense and to read it and make the right read.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and you're just like running. And he was making plays, but I have many thoughts about the spring game, but neither here nor there.
You got to throw it out, man.
Neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. I do think the offense can be better, and I hope that those plans work. But again, I as I like to say, Dave Doran's bad years have been bad, and in the cycle, this has been set up for it to be a bad year. So if he goes 7-5 in a bad year, this would be his worst year. But because the other ones were 3-9 and 4-8.
Ignoring his history and just going with cold analysis of the roster and the schedule, it looks 7-5.
Yes,
and that speaks to where the program is.
As a good thing.
Yeah.
And if they do pop to 8-4, then all of a sudden you're gonna be like, well, they went 8-4 the year before. Yeah, but this 8-4 is much more enjoyable, right? Yes. If you can get Notre Dame or pick off Miami or obviously Carolina.
And for triangle football, it's way better when you have the enjoyable 8-4.
Yeah,
it's way
because Carolina and State the last couple of years have had some of those. Well, yeah, you went 8-4. Yeah, but
yeah, right.
Should have been a whole lot more.
I mean,
that.
it was so fun when John Bunning went 8-5. They made a bobblehead of him because they won the Peach Bowl against Auburn 16-10.
Your heels, Chip. Your heels. Hey, man. I appreciate you taking some time for me. You ready to go hit the Raleigh Times?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. All right, that'll do it for us. 5 stars only, of course, here on Law of the Wolf. We'll be back next week. Next week I'm on vacation, so I'll be back in 2 weeks. I've got NC State baseball coach Elliot Avent lined up for our next episode of Law of the Wolf. Appreciate you guys. Check us out on YouTube and check us out on wherever you get your podcasts. See you soon.